Hi, everyone. It's Janice from the Divorcing Religion podcast. I'm excited to tell you that my book is now for sale. It's called Divorcing Religion, a Memoir and Survival Handbook, and I'll make sure you have a link in the notes for that. And also, I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and become a member of my YouTube channel. Take care. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Divorcing Religion podcast. I'm your host, Janice Selby. I'm a registered professional counselor and a religious trauma recovery coach. Today is a special episode of a series that I'm doing called Strong Women in Secular Spaces. My guest today is activist and speaker, Mandisa Thomas. Although never formally indoctrinated into belief, Mandisa was heavily exposed to Christianity, Black nationalism, and Islam. In 2011, Mandisa founded Black Nonbelievers, Inc. as a nonprofit secular organization. Its goals include eliminating stigma, increasing visibility, and providing support and networking opportunities around non-belief in the African American community. In addition to founding Black Nonbelievers, Mandisa is also the president. She's the recipient of multiple honors, including the 2022 Wolfson Award and co-recipient of the 2020 Harvard Humanist of the Year. I'm proud to say that Mandisa Thomas has been a guest speaker at my events as well, including the Conference on Religious Trauma and the Shameless Sexuality Life After Purity Culture Conference. And she is now also a certified humanist celebrant. I don't know how you have time to even fit that in. It's great to see you, Mandisa. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Janice. It's good to be speaking with you again.
So much has happened since the last time that we spoke. It feels like a world ago, like a century ago. Like so much has changed, and then in some ways, not enough has changed. And of course, I'm referring especially to the election in the United States that just took place. And you know that I'm in Canada, and my family and friends were just eagerly watching, so supportive of Kamala Harris, thinking this is really the time and the place for such a woman to assume a position of power in the United States. And we were cheering, and we just loved the joy and energy that she and her running mate partner brought. And it was just a devastating blow and a shock for everyone here and there when she lost. It was really horrifying. And I wanted to reach out to you in particular because my concern has largely been for the women in the United States and the Black women in particular, because there's already been so much suffering and so much progress that it looked like was being made. So please tell me how you're doing and what's going on for you over there.
Yeah, so I definitely share your disappointment, your dismay, and speaking simply as an individual and not on behalf of Black nonbelievers. I am very, very dismayed at the results, because this proves time and time again how very little, how Black women can be either above reproach, and such a candidate and an advocate for the people. And we have to always work twice, if not triple and quadruple as hard to not get nearly enough the support, and to see the caliber of who she was running against and the lack of character, just the lack of scrutiny, just the lack of, just the blatant disregard for people that her opponent showed. And people still voted for him. And it's like, my goodness, did we not learn anything from 2016? It was bad enough that, yes, Hillary Clinton was not the perfect candidate. Kamala Harris is probably not the perfect candidate. I do think, though, that she was held to an impossible standard, being a Black woman and a woman of color. And also by other Black people, which I just find to be now the exit polls show that the majority of her voters were Black men, especially Black women. And she also had an astounding number of atheists and non religious people who voted for her because we care about progressive values. We care about our communities. But the fact that there are still people, even within our communities and our demographic, who espouse a lot of those right wing talking points that are not based in evidence, that are based on, that are based on stereotypes, that are based on their own prejudices. I mean, sometimes it feels like we can't win for losing at times, but it was also an opportunity to us to say, you know what, we're tired. We're always looked to as as those who do the grunt work, and many of us do. Oftentimes, we do not get as much support as our male counterparts. Something could come out of my mouth and it be ignored, but yet someone else say it, particularly a white male, oh, it gets all of the attention. And it just really, and we know that people depend on our representation and the work that we do, but this really was just a slap in the face to us and to working class people, because there are so many impending dire consequences to this current administration coming in. And it's just so, and which will undoubtedly impact the disadvantaged and marginalized people and people of color first, if they get in there and get their way. And for people to just not fully understand the gravity and to really think that this person who grew up in privilege, who really does not understand working class people, no matter what type of stunts they put on, understand working class people. And they've shown that they can say certain things and they really don't give a damn. They really do not give a damn about anyone who cannot serve their interests. And it's just, we're still trying to breathe through it. I know I am still trying to breathe through it.
Yeah.
And
it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's extremely exhausting. And, it's interesting because, well, not interesting because our household is directly impacted by what goes on in the federal government because my husband is a federal employee.
Oh, wow.
And they're talking about trying to gut federal jobs and people who have been there for decades. It's like they're trying to run it like it's this corporate entity and that they can just simply do that. And anything, I mean, the US federal government is not perfect, but it is not simply run as like a private company. And that's what they're trying to do.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing I've said is that more people will die under this current administration.
Yes.
Too many people died under the first one. More people will die under the second one. And I have to think about how it is, I have to think about who it is that we can actually trust to be in our corner.
Yeah.
We have so many people who say they support, I'm sure they did vote for and support Kamala Harris. But I'm like, are you supporting all the Black women in your orbit? Or are you just trying to keep us silent? It's very, very exhausting. And we now have to think about what this looks like for us. But it's not the first time we've been through these. I'm a student of history, Black history in particular. This certainly is not not the first time we've had to deal with this sort of adversity, but it's going to be one of the worst.
Yeah.
And we have to mentally prepare ourselves for it.
It seems that the social justice movement has, I mean, Black women have been at the forefront of social justice, and that the United States itself was built on the backs and the children of Black women. And you should be running things. My
Yeah.
God. And it looks like you came so close, and such the change, it seemed, was palpable. And so this really felt like having something extremely important snatched away at the last minute. And I mean, it's racism. It's the white fear that people have. It's not just in the United States. It's in Canada. It's all around the world. We have got to move past this. We've got to be able to get past thinking in terms of binaries. If we're going to keep making progress as a species. Yeah. And how can, I look in my own life and I think, what can I do as a white middle-aged woman? I feel embarrassed and horrified at how so many women voted against their sisters, their daughters, their mothers, grandmothers, the reproductive rights. That's a horrifying thing, and it's shocking to me. But when I was a Christian, I'm sure I would have done the same. And this seems also to really be making those camps very plain. The camps of believers who think that they're entitled to everything, and that they have to impose their will on everybody else. I mean, before there was kind of a relatively peaceful coexistence between believers and non-believers. It feels like those days are gone, because we are seeing that they won't play nicely. They're not willing to share. They want to have absolute control. And that means that people in the Black community, the LGBT community, just people in marginalized communities are going to suffer the most.
Yes. And, well, I'll tell you one thing you can do or shouldn't do. Don't buy a blue bracelet.
Okay.
There was a movement by some white women who wanted women of color to know that they were safe spaces for them. So they came up with this idea to create a blue bracelet to show that they were allies of Black people. And it was just like, way to miss the point. Because I'm like, whatever monies that you would have used to, whatever funds you would have used to make those bracelets could have gone to, and still could go to Black women-led organizations who are on the ground doing this work. And because anybody could put on a bracelet and pretend to be an ally.
Yes.
That doesn't truly show what it means to be in the corner of someone who truly needs that support. It doesn't show it at all. And I think what was just so disturbing about that, and hearing about it, was just, it's like, people ask, what can they do? And we constantly tell people what they can do. If you have a platform like you do, you can use that platform to help amplify the voices of those who need it. And then also put your money where your mouth is. Again, support the organizations that are on the ground doing the work.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's sadly, I've even seen, even in our own community, those who, when it comes to actually, saying that, okay, it's donate to support the work. It's like, I don't know. But it's like, and we understand that everybody may not be in a position to do so, but even just the smallest amount helps a lot. It helps so much. And it's just really, really disheartening sometimes to see folks who, just who think, oh, well, I'm thinking of this great idea and it may sound good at the time, but it's like, are you really paying attention or listening to those communities
Right.
who, when they tell you or when we tell you what it is that we need? And there's so much implicit bias. There are so many subconscious biases and institutional racism and institutional prejudice that people are still carrying.
Yes.
That it doesn't have to be in your face anymore, even though we are seeing it quite a bit. But because it's so institutional, it doesn't have to be that people are just standing with a sign that says N-word in your face, or it's so subtle at times. And that can be the most brutal and most cruel ways because people don't realize that they're doing it.
Yes.
And we always have to be on the lookout for that.
So true. So true. And it seems like with him, I don't even want to say his name, but with him
Right, yeah.
being as,
Right.
he, being so obnoxious and so entitled and just out there, not even trying to hide the fact that he's a racist, misogynist, horrible person. And other people are still emboldened, like the horrible behavior. It's just they're not even pretending anymore. And that is so shocking and so terrifying, I'm sure, to be in a community that's the recipient of such terrible language and actions and threats. And look at, he wants to repeal, cut funding to the programs that really highlighted the social inequalities and racist issues in the United States. And so, he wants to do away with those and even prohibiting schools from teaching the truth about how America came to be, meaning slavery and all sorts of other horrible things. Just trying to pretend it never happened. That's literally whitewashing. And I don't know how much the American people will be willing to take. I was surprised when when they repealed Roe v. Wade. I thought, oh boy, something bad's going to happen. And there were marches, but I feel like things are just going to be difficult and get a lot worse. And who knows what will be the outcome. So thank you for reminding me and encouraging our viewers to put their money where their mouth is, support organizations like yours and other organizations led by people of color in the United States making a difference. Because we doubled our giving to Planned Parenthood after the Roe v. Wade nonsense, but it's also time to step up and double the giving to other organizations who are really going to need the support.
Yes, and Planned Parenthood is definitely one of them. Absolutely, it is. And, people just don't think about it. But we're talking about people most whom never really had a public school education, and people who want to aspire to be just like this person, again, who has never had to suffer or struggle, and who really does not understand the working class and people who have to struggle. Like I said, he may pretend that they may pretend that he does, but they really, really don't at the end of the day. And it's extremely disheartening. It's extremely disheartening. And again, it makes our jobs that much harder.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. The misogyny is baked right into Christianity with the whole ridiculous patriarchal power structure. And I wonder I know white pastors and white ministers, a lot of them, most of them in evangelical circles, I'm going to say, jumped right on board the train there. Do you know if in Black churches it was similar, or were they more likely to see what was going on and say, you know what, don't support that
I
person?
think that there were a lot of people, there were a lot of like Black, again, we saw that there were many Black folks who voted for Kamala Harris. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that there were some pastors out there who were against her, but I would say that it was the majority of, I would say that we were actually in coalition this time.
Yeah.
Senator Raphael Warnock, who he is a reverend, he is a
Right.
pastor.
Hmm.
And as much as that kind of like grinds my gears a little bit, he was very much in support of Kamala. He was very
Hmm.
much in support of, and he's very much in support of progressive values. And so,
Hmm.
I don't think that many of the Black pastors this time around really kind of gave much flack. The ones that we saw were some of those like Black Republican legislators,
Oh,
like Tim Scott out of
yeah.
South Carolina, Mark Robinson out of North Carolina. You saw all of these people who were jumping on the Trump train, and even now you don't even see them as a part of his cabinet appointments.
Right.
And so I think, of course, they're espousing their ridiculous, religious views and family values, and which we know are a bunch of crap.
Yeah. 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 I interviewed yesterday Dr. Marlene Winnell of Journey
Yes.
Free. Of course, you know
Uh-huh.
Dr. Winnell. And she was talking about um, institutionalized religionism in the United States. And I thought,
Hmm.
boy, that is true. That's right in there with institutionalized racism, to the point that people don't even recognize it.
Yeah.
We're looking at prison systems being totally about revenge and punishment and being so punitive,
Right.
with no thoughts of rehabilitating people and giving them what they need to prepare them to reintegrate back into society. Going back in healthier than they left, and that's what we
Yeah.
see in Scandinavia, but we don't see it. It's the opposite. The prison system in the United States is a business.
It
They
is.
run it like a
Exactly.
business.
That is what I was going to say. There's no money in I mean, there is at the end of the day in making sure people have um, adequate means to support themselves and contribute to business. However, there is for those types of folks, they lose money when there's no one in prison. Because again, we're talking about a prison industrial complex where people can get close to slave labor because of the 13th
Yeah.
Amendment of the United
Hmm.
States. And these are for a lot of these local municipalities, like I said, punitive, no punitive action helps their budgets. And unfortunately, when you have a cycle of people who, are at a disadvantage, they may not be as well versed on the law and they get taken advantage of. It is another perpetual system of enslavement. And
Hmm.
we have to look at the history of that. There are some people who want to ignore it and say that racism is has ended. Well, if this election showed you anything,
Yeah.
it's otherwise. And we
Oh,
have to
yeah.
continue to address that very uncomfortable topic. And there are some people who, a lot of conservatives rail about critical race theory, which is a college level. It is college level academia.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, And they made it seem like, well, oh, we're just going to teach all the white kids to hate themselves. No,
Yeah.
I'm just, it's, and to actually have, care and compassion for human beings to show basic
Yeah.
human decency is considered to be
Hmm.
woke. It's considered to
Oh,
be, oh, well, they're going too far left or they're going to, and that was some of the criticisms of the Harris, Walt's campaign. And I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
So, yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I think that's kind of where we all are now. Like, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
And there's just
Yeah.
no other way to, just to describe that.
Yeah. And to think of Christians, people who call themselves Christians, I don't know, they believe they are Christians. Um, Things have become so topsy turvy where they're worshiping Trump because, oh, sorry, I said that awful name, because he's like a strong man, right? And that's how they see Jesus in the Bible. It's talked about coming back to the earth with armies, heavenly armies, this kind of thing. But where compassion now is poo-pooed. Like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, if you're compassionate, you're woke, just like you said. And that is just so crazy. And I think of little children in a daycare, 2 years old, 3 years old. They haven't been indoctrinated to hate yet. Uh, and and they play with each other and they're happy with each other and they hug each other, regardless of what their heritage or their background is. Um, and I just feel like if only we could get to that place of just loving and accepting each other. But it's like you said, too, it's a hard dialogue for people, for white people to have with themselves and amongst themselves, recognizing the racism that we all succumb to on some level. And it's not because we are trying to, but we're just not even aware of it. So the responsibility lies on us to be educating ourselves about it and just being aware of it,
Yeah,
calling
and
it out
that's
when
and I
we
think
see
that's
it.
kind of all we've asked for.
Hmm.
It's not that we are expecting, well, at least I know I'm not expecting perfection. I do think though that it's just I think it's just so insidious that there are just some people who think that they don't have to do that work. And this is not the first time this has happened. I think of I think of something that Malcolm X said in his autobiography about there, and I cannot remember who the person he referenced was. And it was a white person who claimed that a skin game was being played. When marginalized people have rise up and we start saying, you know what, enough is enough, and start fighting
Hmm.
for our rights.
Hmm.
And he said, I remember the comparison that he made because he said he's right. A skin game is being played, but the person sounded like Jesse James accusing the marshal of carrying a gun.
Oh,
Because who has ever played a worse skin game than the white man?
yes, seriously.
That has, and which has impacted white women, which has impacted poor people, which has impacted some of everybody.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm like, we have to, as much as it makes people uncomfortable, it's sad to me to see these things come full circle. It really, really is. And it's just like, my goodness. It's like, have you people no shame half the time? Have
Mhm,
you no shame?
mhm. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but it's certainly the one getting ready to step into the White House again has no shame.
Hmm.
And that is dangerous for everybody when you have someone who his bottom line is all about himself. How much wealthier can he make himself? I saw the other
Yeah,
day. Now he's selling guitars for $10,000 that are,
yes.
I'm going, who's
Who in the
eating
world
this
would buy? Who in the
nonsense?
world?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And I know for me, when I was upset thinking how could women have voted against their own best interests and against their own bodily autonomy, then I look at some of the people that he is awarding positions to who are people of color, men of color, and I think the same. They are like Tim Scott. You mentioned, I think that was his name. Was that the right name? Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm going, how can you vote against? it's almost like voting against your own self. It's so frustrating and concerning. And then I have a concern that is he going to leave in 4 years? Because he
Yeah, he's
has
trying to
threatened,
yeah, he's trying to
setting up a kingdom.
mhm, absolutely. Absolutely he is. And I mean it's just yeah.
And
It,
it's not for America can't. Black women have had enough. Black people have had enough. We can't keep depending on them to be pulling the nation forward.
yeah,
Everybody else has got to step up and support and say, here is what we stand for in this country. Here are the values that we hold dear. We are not going to be pushed around by people who don't even deserve to be in positions of authority, people who are dangerous in positions of authority. But we have to overcome this complacency, and that seems like a very difficult piece of the puzzle.
I know it. Yeah, yeah. It,
How did talks go with your kids after the election?
so my youngest, my son Miles, who's is still at home, my oldest son is in college now.
Right.
And we were asking, he was asking about like the election results when on election day. And so I said it was very early. At first I said I don't even want to look at it, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did tell him the best sources of where to look
Okay, yeah.
for the results, which are usually C-SPAN and the Associated Press.
Hmm.
And the next day, we talked about it, and I just told him to, just be a little mindful and cautious of the conversations that he might be having in school,
Mm,
because we are in still a largely red county. There are a lot of Trump Vance signs around us. We did see more Harris Waltz signs because things are changing, but there are still a lot of Republicans here where we live.
yeah, yeah.
And so I was just a little concerned. I was very concerned that perhaps because he's very outspoken. And
Is he
so,
okay?
yeah, I was just like, and then he's very politically inclined. Like, for example, when it came to like the Israel and Palestine
Mm.
conflict, um, I remember one night I asked him if he wanted McDonald's, and he said, "You do know that McDonald's supports Israel, right?" So, and I
Wow,
and I'm,
he's
I'm like,
aware.
"Well, yeah." I said, "So, I mean, I'm asking him like, so should we be boycotting them?" And he was basically like, "Yes." So, making a conscious effort, and that reminds me of my childhood too. I was like very militant and revolutionary, and always wanted my kids to be socially conscious and
Yeah.
mindful.
Hmm.
And so I was really, really proud of him for that. And I did talk to my daughter, and she's disappointed as well. She's LGBTQ plus,
Hmm.
and so I worry for her. I worry for all the other LGBTQ plus children
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
adults,
Yeah.
because there are going to be some serious uphill battles that they have to climb, which is so unfortunate. And they shouldn't have to.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, repealing protections from those groups is just horrifying, and it's that definitely feels like a massive step backwards.
hmm
Oh
yeah, yeah,
boy, oh boy.
yeah.
My youngest daughter, lives with us, and she's in her middle 20s, and she was just crying the day after the election, and I just laid down with her for a little bit and talked about. She's a type 1 diabetic, and she has a
hmm
lot of diabetic
Yeah.
friends in the United States. Terribly, terribly worried for them, and also LGBTQ plus as well. And so tremendous concerns that way. And on this side of the border, I mean, you guys sneeze and we catch cold. What happens there happens here to some extent. And then there are the additional concerns about, what could we do if a greedy SOB got control
Mhm.
of the United States and decided he wanted Canadian resources? Well,
Yeah,
there's not too much that we can really do about it. So I feel like people here are also the level of anxiety is just going higher and higher. So, I mean, what what are you doing for yourself? What is the community? I mean, we have to be taking such incredible care of ourselves right now because the stress level is so high. Supporting each other, talking with people that we love and care about, supporting each other that way. I'm really not sure whatever else could go on. I think about, is there a way that, Canadians could do some kind of underground railroad to
I
help
know, right?
women who need abortions, to help get LGBTQ plus people, to safety. We think about those things. We talk about those things.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what happened.
Janice, one of the things that I think, and I'm not sure if you've been keeping up, but one of Trump's cabinet appointments recently withdrew his name,
Oh
Matt
yeah.
Gaetz,
Oh yeah.
because, yeah, I know, right? We didn't want to mention, but he withdrew his name because of the scandal with him having sex with 17-year-olds.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm like, just the nerve of these people to think that they can run on a platform of morality, but yet they're covering up so much and they don't think that people are going to notice that. I'm like, did you really not think that anyone would pay attention?
Seriously.
No one. You just thought that was going to be all right.
They
It's
voted in
like,
the president who
yeah,
who has all those counts against him. I
yeah,
mean, he
exactly. Yes. And I mean, there's something about people not simply wanting to be judged for, but that's exactly what they're doing. They are espousing these very, very conservative and hypocritical values
Mhm.
that hurt people who are not simply cis hetero white men or white people.
Right. Mhm.
But yet
Mhm.
they're allowed to get away with so much. And it's just like, part of me thinks that it's going to implode on itself in a way. However, there's still enough time for so much damage to be done that, it's just sometimes it's just so hard to say. But what I've been doing is just really trying to, stay motivated for myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Still continuing to work in coalition with our movement partners, continuing to have conversations with our members about where they are. Um, because even though again, we are very, we're very limited as far as what we can do politically, but our very existence is political.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
often vote for values that are for the betterment of
Yeah.
humankind.
Mhm.
And so therein lies the question of what we must continue to do at the end
Mhm.
of the day. And um, definitely, we have our cruise coming up next week,
Yay, yes.
next Saturday, and so we will be talking about the changes and the things that we'll be doing as an organization. Speaking on topics that impact us politically,
Mhm.
and also just trying to decompress and let people know that there is still a community there for
Yes.
them and that we have to
Mhm.
be there for each other. And
Mhm.
the one thing I can sort of begrudgingly respect about the other side was that overall they didn't just simply turn on each other, even though it's ridiculous how many of them still supported this person, even though
Mhm.
he is clearly not for the people. He really isn't.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
they kind of circled their wagons and just goodness gracious, they just kind of made it just so difficult for so many different people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, they really did. And, the clients that I see working with people recovering from religious trauma, I see people from a variety of religious backgrounds. But by and large, it's ex-evangelicals, people who have left evangelical Christianity. Most of my clients are in the United States. I do have clients in Canada and Europe as well. What I've noticed in my support group, um, is that they also are feeling a lot of fear because the group that's taking power, the essentially white Christian supremacists,
Yeah.
that's what they left. That's now they're
Yeah.
horrified by that and the fear of, oh my God, these people now are espousing everything
Right.
that we don't stand for anymore, and they know the zeal. They understand it. So do I, because I was in that same camp, and they are so. There's such a degree of mind control or brainwashing or whatever you want to call it that's gone on there. They feel compelled. They must keep marching forward. It's like zombies, just bent on replication, right?
Yeah.
Without actually stopping to think about things, and that's a scary and a hard position to be in anytime religion comes up. And I mean, you mentioned Israel and that whole nightmare over there.
Yeah.
And that is religious trauma of the highest order. That is a religious war, would not be happening except for religion. Very, very frustrating. And I think, too, a lot of people in the United States just stayed home and didn't vote because they felt that
Yeah.
was how they could protest, even though I was like, oh my God, please don't do
Oh,
that,
right.
because do you
Yes. It's
see
like that's
what
one of
will
the worst things
happen?
you could do. That's one of the
Yes,
worst things.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's, I understand the anger and the frustration of seeing what's going on and seeing that it's allowed to keep going on there. There don't seem to be any repercussions, and it's so frustrating. And perhaps this is one of those times where things will have to get worse before they get better. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it'll be up to people like your son, who he does have such a strong sense of social justice and was raised
hmm
with humanist values. You can see
Values.
the 10 humanist
Absolutely.
commitments behind me.
Yes.
I want those in every classroom. Forget the 10 commandments, those archaic, outdated, very religious, very fear-based commandments. The 10 commitments from the American Humanist Association, based on the
Mm,
Humanist Manifesto, they
yeah.
serve everybody. They're for
hmm
the betterment of all humanity.
Right. And I think there are going to have to be some humanists who, they still think that the time for kumbaya in some instances is over. When
Mhm.
people's rights are on the line, when people's voices are on the line, we still abide by a stance of evidence, a stance of critical thought and empathy a lot as well, which sometimes is not always going to be pretty.
Mhm.
If we're looking for justice, if we are fighting for the human rights, especially for those who have been uh, especially marginalized, that means that we're not going to be able to get along with everybody. And you're going to have to listen to the voices of those who have been impacted the most and be more caring and empathetic for us. And it's not going to be a perfect process. It's not. And to really start calling out, these systems of oppression that impact some of everybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's it's definitely not going to be it's going to be a multifaceted approach that we have to deal with here,
Yeah.
because we're dealing with religion, we're dealing with greed, we're dealing with power dynamics, something
Yeah.
that,
Patriarchy.
patriarchy. We're dealing with so many things that are just innate to
Right.
humankind,
Mhm.
but that we must recognize and still continue to work together to fight against.
Yes.
So
Yeah. The
yeah.
United States is such a beacon, really, out of all the countries in the world. When people in other kind of far-flung regions picture a life of freedom, a life of opportunity, may picture getting to the United States. America's a beautiful. The United States is a beautiful place. It already is great in so many ways, and I think
Mm-hmm.
people around the world are concerned by what's happening. But it's not just in the United States. We see this
Oh,
as something that's been
yes.
taking place.
Throughout the
So it's almost
world.
like it's like some it's a civilization wide. It feels like, and it is concerning. My desire is to leave as much love in my wake as I can when I'm gone. I hope that while I'm here, I can just continue to highlight issues that are important. Um, but you're right. It's an uncomfortable situation
Mm-hmm.
for white people to learn to sit with their own discomfort and just listen. And obviously people who have been oppressed are rightfully angry, and so we get to sit there then and listen to anger and
Yeah.
let it wash over us and let ourselves feel it and recognize we have played a role, we do play a role, and what can we do to change things moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely no one easy answer to
Right.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it feels impossible right now. It does.
Yeah.
And we have to
Hmm.
honor that space for ourselves. We
Yeah.
have to honor it and say, you know what? It feels like such an uphill battle
Hmm.
that it almost feels like we never win it. But, at the end of the day, we do still need to, push through it and keep fighting.
Yeah.
And while it is hard right now, and like I said, keep loving, because that is, I think if we would do ourselves a disservice to just simply focus on the issue and not necessarily care about the people in them. If we become simply cause driven and not people driven, we are doing ourselves a disservice. So we have to
Hmm.
continue to love and support one another, work through any differences that we have as much as possible. Um, and even sitting with the fact that, there are some people who have chosen to distance themselves from family members who voted for the current,
Yeah.
for the president elect.
Hmm.
And they need to be okay with sitting with that. And
Yeah.
as unpleasant as that is, it's just a matter of, hey, it is what it is, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because how can you sit with someone who voted against your human rights? It's hard to look
Right.
at people like that.
Yes. Yes. And that is one place, if we are feeling disempowered, relationships are one place that we can take back some of that power by determining, you know, I don't have to spend time with you just because we are related. I'm allowed to say, I'm very uncomfortable. I don't agree with what you've done. And we can invite dialogue if we feel strong enough and safe enough for the dialogue. But another option is to put a boundary there for our own mental health. And
Hmm.
say, I'm not okay with this right now. I can't speak
Yeah,
to the future, but right now I'm taking space and time for myself. And I
right.
certainly encourage people to consider doing that. When I thought of doing this special series on strong women in secular spaces, you are one of the first people I thought of, Mandisa, because you are strong, you are creative. I mean, Black Nonbelievers is so beautiful. It's so powerful in lots of different ways. How can people
Thank you.
find you? How can they support the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, you can always go to our website at blacknonbelievers.org. We are in the process of making some wonderful changes and updates for members and supporters. And you can also find us almost everywhere on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I try not to mention that other platform right now that's in transition, but
No.
But yes, you can. And we're also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel where we go live every first and third Saturday of the month, and we are a, U.S. Federally recognized nonprofit organization. So we are a 501c3 organization,
Excellent.
which means that you can donate to us, and they are tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law. And it really
Fantastic.
does help with our ability to do our work, our ability to continue to reach out to not just our community, but beyond that. And we have one of our speakers for our cruise this year is Dr. Teddy Reeves, who is the religion and life curator at the National Museum for African American Culture. We
Wow.
participated in their documentary, their first feature documentary called God Talk. And we provided the atheist community perspective for Black communities. And
Awesome.
so that our existence has allowed people to see what building and maintaining communities among us looks like and how that is changing among the younger people. And it's good for our communities as well, because this is a historic institution.
Mm.
And they're recognizing, they're seeing the changes of religious landscapes in Black
Yeah.
communities. They're recognizing that there are more atheists and religion doubters out there,
Hmm.
and that our voices deserve to be heard. And the fact that we were able to represent, I'm proud to have represented for this feature, because it really is monumental for folks to understand the work that is being done,
Hmm.
and the work that is being put in to make sure that people feel safe, people feel represented, and people feel seen. And that deserves all the support
Oh, yeah.
that we can get.
Beautiful.
So yeah, but
No,
definitely visit
no signs.
blacknonbelievers.org.
Yeah, boy, no signs of slowing down. It sounds like really you are full speed ahead. I'm excited for your cruise. I hope you have a wonderful time. And I'll encourage people also, including myself, will be making sure to make some good donations to Black Nonbelievers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you, Mandisa.
Thank you so much, Janice. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, take care, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon.